Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to make an announcement to ask that we kindly turn off or silence all cell phones, electronic devices. Thank you very much.
Shalom, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Rabbi Gary Gans. I'm the Rabbi Emeritus Congregation Beth Tikva in Marlton. I'm honored but sad to be with you here today as we acknowledge the death of Dina. Before the ceremony started, you saw that I cut the ribbon that Svetlana is wearing, and by custom it is on the left-hand side as one mourns a parent. And also you will see that the ribbon is only cut part way, as is also the custom. It is never to be restitched and represents the sense of tearing that she feels and many of you feel as well, emotionally, and is a representation of her sadness and her loss. Ma'ayan HaChayim, wellspring of life. We've come together this afternoon sharing our sorrow to commemorate the life of Dina. We recall the blessing of her life. We thank God for that was all that was good and true in her life, and for the precious memories which shall endure. Eternal God, her family bowed in grief with her friends. Seek light to dispel the dark gloom that threatens to overwhelm them. Be gracious to those who mourn, for they are in distress. Bless them with your compassion. Ease their burden of sorrow. Send them light and peace. For it is written, "Fear not, as I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will sustain you with my power." And let us say, Amen. On Dina's behalf, I now read Psalm 23, an excerpt in Hebrew and an English interpretation. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, benodesha yarbitzeni, Al mei menuchot yanachaleni. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. God has me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside the still waters. God guides me on paths of righteousness and revives my soul for the sake of God's glory. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod do comfort me. You set the table in sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of the Lord forever. Svetlana and I had opportunity to speak on the phone about her mother. I'm impressed with her endurance, her vitality, her ability to survive and to thrive. And I was reminded of a text that I want to share with you that is called Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor, that comes from the book of Proverbs. Eshet Chayil mi yimtza, rachok mipinim michra, betach balev ba'ala v'lo shalal lo yachsar, gemalatu tov v'lo ra, kol yemei hayaha. A woman of valor, who can find? She is more precious than fine pearls. Her family trusts in her, and so they lack nothing. She does them good, never harm, all the days of her life. She perceives that her labor is rewarding. Her candle burns on into the night. She reaches out to those in need and extends her hands to the poor. She is clothed in strength and dignity, and she faces the future cheerfully. She speaks with wisdom. The law of kindness is on her lips. Her family rises up, and they bless her, and they sing her praises. Many daughters have done valiantly, but you excel them all. There is a book that Svetlana put together, handcrafted, on their 50th anniversary for Dina and for Nahum. What is impressive is not just that they made it to the 50th and beyond, but a little vignette that Svetlana shared with me that they got engaged after knowing each other for 3 days. Dynamic. What a way to form a relationship, but it was a keeper. It lasted, and it lasted with strength. As you may know, Dina was a survivor of the Shoah, of the Holocaust, while in Russia. But she still strives afterwards, too, and earned a master's degree in finance. She loved to read. And there were so many beautiful pictures that were placed on the Platt website. And almost all the pictures had flowers that she beautified, and they beautified her. And it was certainly done by a great photographer. Did you take the pictures, Svetlana? Yes? Well done. Actually, it was reciprocal because Svetlana brought food to Dina every day when she was in the rehab. Dina loved to see Jeopardy on TV. She learned English well, and she loved to read. These are all important qualities. You'll hear more in a few moments about Dina the person, Dina the mother, and how she will be remembered in your lives as well. Before the ceremony, I was listening. Well, they didn't understand the Russian. I apologize. But I could tell from the exuberance of seeing each other that there was a joyfulness that you shared with each other, as well as the seriousness and the gravitas of this moment of remembering Dina. It's a balance of life, balance of death. And that, too, rings clear in the book of Ecclesiastes. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Indeed, this is our moment to speak about Dina, and I've been honored with the prints out of the entire book that Svetlana put together, but I'm going to share one page with you. Again, this is done for their 50th wedding anniversary. This is midway through. Less than 2.5 months after the Soviet Union was attacked by Nazi Germany, enemy troops were already approaching Leningrad. The Red Army was outflanked, and in September 1941, the Germans had fully encircled Leningrad, and the siege began. The siege lasted for a total of 900 days, from September the 8th, 1941, until January the 27th, 1944. The city's almost 3 million civilians, including about 400,000 children, refused to surrender. and endured rapidly increasing hardships in the encircled city. Food and fuel stocks were limited. Public transport was not operational. And by the winter of 1941-42, there was no heating, no water supply, almost no electricity, and very little food. In January 1942, in the depths of an unusually cold winter, the city's food rations reached an all-time low of only about a quarter of a pound of bread per person per day. In just 2 months, January and February of 1942, 200,000 people died in Leningrad of cold and starvation. Despite these tragic losses and the inhumane conditions, the city's war industries still continued to work, and the city did not surrender. In 1941, when the war had started, it was a trend in Leningrad to send children away to the boarding schools. Dina got to one in Yaroslavl. She spent there a very short period of time and luckily was taken back to Leningrad by Polina's friend, who went there to get her daughter. The winter of 1941 was terribly cold. Leningrad was under siege. The hunger was unbearable. Mama Polya was suffering from scurvy. It was something amazing how they managed to survive. Papa Misha got pneumonia. The badly needed medicine was not available. On the 10th of April, 1942, he passed away. Several 100,000 people were evacuated from across Lake Ladoga via the famous Road of Life, the only route that connected the besieged city with the mainland. During the warm season, people were ferried to the mainland, and in winter, carried by trucks that drove across the frozen lake under constant enemy bombardment. The very latest possible moment, Mama Polya managed to get a transport to leave the city under blockade with Dina and Brother Isai on her hands. The small ship they were on was under constant bombardment. Miraculously, they were able to cross Lake Ladoga and get into the freight train going east to Alfai region near the city of Barnwell. That's only a small part of her struggle, her endurance, and her success. I'm honored to call on several people who have been designated to come up this afternoon. And first I call on Anna Adler from the Jewish Family and Children's Service to come and speak. Countrywide Home Care.
But I'm just a friend.
I apologize.
That's okay. I just don't want to misrepresent. Hi, everyone. I feel really honored to be able to say a few words today for Dinachka. I met Dina over 20 years ago when she came to attend a medical adult daycare center. And after being evaluated for the daycare, she wasn't eligible. You had to be a lot more sick to be able to attend. So she came to talk to me and she said, I really like it here. What can I do to help you? So she and I talked, and what we decided was that she was going to be a volunteer. So Dina became a volunteer with so many seniors that were attending the facility, and she was my helper. So every day she would come to me and she would advocate for so many people. She would help people with Social Security services. She would call different organizations and just see what she could do to help people more. She became like my right hand, and it was absolutely amazing because so many people that were attending didn't speak English, and she did. So she always just wanted to help. That was amazing. I was about 30-something years old, and she would come to me every day with her hair done, with her makeup done, just looking beautiful, and she would say to me, Anishka, where's your lipstick? you need to make sure that you put lipstick on, because before you take care of everybody else, you have to take care of yourself too. And you know what? That served me really well in life, because sometimes there, as caretakers, we forget that in order to take care of someone, you have to take care of yourself. So that's definitely something that she taught me. But the other thing that she taught me throughout 20 somewhat years that I've known her is just to always be kind. She was so kind to absolutely everyone, whether they were kind or not. She was always kind. Later in her life, Dina needed more help, and she came to me, and I had the honor of providing her assistance in her home with my wonderful home health aides. And let me tell you, her kindness, you know, she was just kind to everyone. Everyone who came into her home became like family to her. And as they said to me as well, it was just a pleasure taking care of someone who really appreciated them and really welcomed people into her home with open arms. While Dina was at the daycare, Dina, other than advocating for people, Dina loved to read. We had a very big library, Russian library, and Dina always loved to read the Russian books, but she would say to me, you know, everybody here speaks Russian. We need to get people to speak English as well. So what can we do for people to start speaking a little bit of English? So Dina's idea was to make a book club. So she wanted people to gather to do a book club, and I would read to them, and then we would stop like every chapter and discuss what I read in English. And everybody had a turn to pick a book. So when Dina picked a book, the book that Dina picked was 50 Shades of Grey. And as a 32-year-old who was actually very conservative and shy, I sat there reading the book to a group of elderly women, and then, you know, translating certain sections and going over them. It was quite an experience, and it just showed like the spirit that she had, because she was like, this is great, this is exciting and good. So again, with that, you know, it just taught me a lot that no matter what age you're in, you have different interests, and you know, we can't forget who we are, no matter where we're at. Dinashka and her spirit, the person that she was, is definitely going to be missed. I always think of her. I always remember her throughout all these years. If I would call her, she would text me sometimes on Facebook, and I would call her, and every time was like a party on the phone. Like, oh my God, Anishka, I'm so glad to hear from you. Just always amazing. But one thing that I want to say to you, Svieta, is you and I were talking the other day, and you said, you know, my mom is gone. I don't have her anymore. As an only child, and I'm an only child as well, so I know and I can understand. We get so much love and so much attention from our parents, and when we're still little, sometimes that love and attention, we don't want it so much because we want to be independent and we want to be alone. And as we're getting older, that love and attention becomes more and more important to us. And then as our parents are aging and we're aging with them, that love and attention is everything. That love that you've received as an only child from your mother is the biggest gift that you can have. And it's always going to be with you, always going to be with you, because nothing can take it away. So may her memory be a blessing, and may she rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Anishka. I must say, in my entire career of performing funerals, no one has ever quoted 50 Shades of Grey before. So that, too, is a great experience. I might add that Anna was here representing Countrywide Care. I'm now honored to call on Fran Reese, her extraordinary next-door neighbor.
Okay, I too was very pleased when Svetlana asked me to say a few words. I've known the Bogorad family for 42 years. Dina, Nam, and Svetlana have been my neighbors. all that time. In the early days, I remember they seemed to always be on vacation. They were always going someplace. Svetlana was the best travel agent. She would plan it, she would research everything, and wherever they went, there were always museums and music involved. And then they would come back and tell and share all their experiences with me and my husband. It was quite. We could follow your lead and hopefully do a little more traveling ourselves. Dina was constantly working on her English. Nam, not so much. He was trying. She would always give him a hard time about his English. My late husband, Tony, was fascinated by Nam's stories of what life was like in Russia and how grateful he was to be to be in America with his family. Tony was born in Italy, and as a child remembered Mussolini's men marching down the streets. And the two of them had a lot to discuss. They spent a lot of time standing in the driveway talking about all of this. Dina was always such a beautiful, classy lady. When she went out, she was always dressed, had her makeup on, and she worked at Loehmann's as she did bookkeeping for them for a while. But she always had her eye on the couture inventory for her and Svetlana. And I ran into them so many times at the store, doing a little shopping. Her main concern, though, at those days was that Svetlana. She was worried for Svetlana. She would wonder if what would happen if she and Nam were no longer here. And she worried that Svetlana would not find a nice young man who shared her daughter's extended interests and matched her intellect. Her prayers were answered when Svetlana and Alex became a couple. She couldn't have loved anyone more than Alex. Tony found out that her favorite song was Sorrento, and I remember him singing it to her in Italian over the picket fence in the yard. She loved it, and it was so sweet. She really did love her music. She enjoyed her time at the center. She talked about it quite a bit. It was a social time for her. She could be with friends. She would have conversations with people, and she was so outgoing. It really was a wonderful part of her life. She always, again, she was always put together. When I saw her leave for the center, she was always dressed and the makeup was on. Anyone who knew her also knew not to call her during Jeopardy for any reason. That was her precious time. The last few years were difficult for her and even more difficult for Svetlana. She did everything humanly possible for her mom to make life easier and comfortable. But Dina was not that easy for poor Svetlana. It was not her fault. She just didn't feel well. We all get grumpy when life gets in the way. The last few years of life do not define a person. We will all remember the decades of this smart, beautiful, elegant lady who was a loving, caring, and protective wife and mother, and always a good friend. I heard a quote recently that said, "You die twice. Once when your heart gives out, and a second time when your stories stop being told." So don't stop talking about Dina, and she'll always be with us.
Thank you, Fran. You and Anna both painted a picture that, as the colors come together, tell us so much more collectively about Dina and her background and her influence. So thank you for sharing. We come now to the prayer. El Malei Rachamim, God the compassionate one. Even in times of sadness, in times of sorrow, we turn to God for support. I ask you all to kindly stand who are comfortable doing so. I will be using her Hebrew name as part of this prayer. El Malei Rachamim, Shochem B'Amromim, Hamtzei Mnucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, B'Ma'alot Kedoshim Toharim, Zohar Kiet Masirim. Et Nishmat Dina Bat Moshe Uperl. Shalcha Lolama. Began Eden Tehei Menuchata. Ana. Ba'ahar Rachamim. Hasti Reha Beseter Kanapecha Leolamim. Ustror Vitror Chaim Et Nishmata. Adonai Hu Nachalata. V'tanuach b'shalom amishkava v'nomar. Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Dina. Hebrew name was Dina, the daughter of Moshe and Pearl, who has gone to her eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that she performed in the land of the living. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. The Lord is her portion. May she rest in the tranquility of peace, of shalom. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. The interment will take place at the Locust Wood Cemetery on Route 70 once we depart this site. Adonai, mi agur b'ohelecha, mi yishkon b'har kodecha, v'olech tamid b'kodesedek, v'azeh zover eretz lavavo, lo nagal al Hashem, v'asar enu ra'a, v'terpar lo nasa akrovo, yivzeh v'einav yiv'as, en yirei Adonai yechaved, yishbal hara v'lo yavir, achol lo nefesh,